4 parts of the brain light up like alarms when we face disruption: habit, threat, reward, and orientation. That's the neuroscience of resistance, and it's why so many AI transformations fail. I'm Vivian Wei, COO of Salesforce Unified Agentforce Platform, and in this episode of AI Heroes and Headaches, I sat down with Rosanne Werner, CEO of XcelerateIQ, to unpack what it really takes to lead with AI. There are a couple of things I learned when I saw her in London. First, AI adoption is not just an IT challenge. It's actually a behavioral re-engineering opportunity. Think about the transformations. When they truly happen, people in your organization must feel safe to experiment, fail fast, and learn publicly. The second thing I learned is don't boil the ocean. Boil just enough hot water to make a cup of tea. This is extremely valuable, especially when it comes to bring up your data maturity to support agentic AI transformation. Tune in for one of the most human-first conversations I've had on this podcast series. Hey everyone, we're live from Big Data London Conference in 2025 in London, the UK. And today I have the honor of having a conversation with Rosanne, who is my very first woman in data and AI guest on AI Heroes and Headaches. So thank you so much for joining me, Rosanne.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very delighted to have met you and having this conversation today.
You know, you have had such a fascinating background. You did a lot of cultural large data transformations. You mentioned that you did finance transformations, and then you went to start your own business. Tell us about that journey.
Yes. So I started my career in finance. So I started in Deloitte doing finance transformation, and it was like international financial reporting standards were coming in. There was SOX control coming in, and I did a lot of finance transformation with oil and gas, mining, pharmaceutical, and I led that finance transformation at Coca-Cola as well when I moved over from Sydney to London. And it was always the people element. Yes, there's the systems, there's the processes, but you really need the people on the journey. So it was like, how do you help people deal with change, deal with resistance, deal with changing their habits on a day-to-day level, because you're changing their finance systems. And Coca-Cola was when they were setting up their data analytics program and their teams, and the CDO saw what I was doing in the people transformation side of things, and they were like, look, we're doing a data analytics mindset and culture program, and we want you to take the people element of this. And so I led the data in action program at Coca-Cola as well.
That's super impressive.
Thank you.
Wait, so speaking of people and then finance, I feel like, coming from finance background first out of college, finance people are actually some of the most risk-averse people. And when you talk about data transformation in finance, the first thing I think about is, oh my gosh, this is huge risk-taking. What are some of the fears that you had to kind of guide the teams through? Or what happened? Tell us about the behind the scenes, crazy stories.
Yeah. Especially in such a large organization, people are so familiar with their own data and their own processes, and so sometimes the data hoarding or the silos were there across the functions. And this is where, when we led the global program, this is where we brought different functions together so they are able to build networks with each other across the functions, but then also understand the data lineage of, for example, we had commercial in the program, and the supply chain in the program, and it was the discussions around data and how they handle data and read data and use data for decision making, that the commercial guys were like, okay, the data I'm putting in has an impact down the line to what the supply chain teams would produce. So it was really getting them familiarized with other functions around the organization, but then also talk with each other that data is an asset of the company and that they all have a role to play, and they how to collaborate with each other to get better data in the organizations. What are the processes, what are the governance, how do they deal with changes in habits within the teams? And so it's getting them breaking that down, but then also that collaboration piece helps with that discussion between different functions.
Yeah. So what I heard is like, hey, you brought together people from different functional teams, whether within finance or in the bigger enterprise context. And then there's the concept of data lineage, but people only see part of the elephant, right? Because I learned that from being in London for the last 48 hours, there's this term, how do you eat an elephant? When there's a huge, big puzzle, where do you start? But what you talk about is, hey, once I bring all these people together, part of this is like helping people see not only are they feeling part of the elephant, but how do they come together and piece it out and understand the interconnections in between these organizations.
Exactly.
So there's so much to unpack, right? Because you talked about like behavioral aspect of change. Then there's also the science of how do you bring different parts of the organization together, and of course like data lineage being the core component. How do you kind of keep your own thinking fresh? As we talk a lot about AI at this conference. Data, AI, super interconnected. How do you keep your thinking fresh?
Well, I think the learning journey is always like ongoing because technology is like moving so quickly. But like you said, we can't eat the elephant all at the same time. You need to take bites to start eating the elephant. And I think the easiest way to break through people's like fear and resistance is like, okay, what are they dealing with on a day-to-day? How does data feed into this? How does AI feed into this? Make it relatable, make it something that's personal so that they're able to relate to it. And then having that little small shifts of habits and then seeing the rewards from those small shifts allow them to go, well, actually, I use this dashboard for this decision and this generated this really good result. Then that reward reinforces that behavior again. And then when you talk about bringing people together, it's the sharing of those ideas, sharing of the success stories that marketing might go, well, we had these success stories using data and AI, and then supply chain might be like, well, why don't we get on board on it too? And then that kind of community sharing creates a pull effect as opposed to like a push effect on you got to do data and AI training. That push effect, it's a mandate. But actually, when you hear people talk about it, people have this like fear of missing out, so they want to understand how they can get involved because they can personally relate to the efficiencies.
I really like this concept. Data is contagious. Like you create this movement, you start from something small, create a little habit, kind of like going to the gym and getting everybody to do 5 minutes every day. And then, once people start to see the benefits, other people who resist going to the gym will want to like come to the gym as well. And then you create a bigger movement. Now you have a group of people who go to the gym or maybe run outside for an hour over time, right? Like together every day.
Exactly. There's a whole like, you don't get fit from one workout. You need to consistently do your reps to build the muscles, and that is also the learning and the movement side of things.
Can you maybe give us an example of where like there's this mindset friction in a large enterprise? Because we all know it's really hard to drive change in a large company, especially if a company, I like to give the example of like a manufacturing business who's been around for 40, 50 years. People are used to doing the same thing the exact same way. But then an example of like where, there's so much friction, feels like you're in a sinking ship. Like, what did you do to kind of turn the ship around?
I'll probably touch on the science of why our brains resist change. And there's like 4 key parts of the brain that activates when you're faced with change. And this is why change is so hard. Your brain is wired to protect you. Your brain loves patterns. Your brain loves routine. Your brain loves certainty. So when you're dealing with change, it's actually your brain, like four parts of your brain lights up as an alarm. So there's a habit side of things. So your brain is like, it's the subconscious actions that you do. And if change comes about and it disrupts your patterns, your brain goes, I don't know what to do, which is why people then are going back to old habits, even though they've done the training. And then there's this other part of the brain, which is more the alarm system. So it basically, when it senses change as danger, it goes, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And this is why people, there's the fear, there's the denial, and the frustration comes in. The third one is the part of the brain that is your reward system. So you get rewarded, a feel-good feeling when you succeed, and then it shuts it down when you fail. So when you're dealt with change, it goes, well, I don't want to mess up, which is why people then don't step out of their comfort zone, because they don't want the whole fear of failing.
Right.
And the fourth one is your internal GPS. So that's your internal and physical social map. So when change changes things like new routines or you got a new team, your brain goes, I'm lost. And that's why sometimes change feels so disorientating and exhausting. So these 4 parts of your brain lights up and pushes against that resistance when change comes. So when we go through change, we might be implementing a new system or a new tool, and we go, well, the system's ready, but actually, have we taken the people on that change journey to go, no, you're not lost. This is the way. Don't fear failing, because we have a safe space for you to have your discussions, raise your concerns. And this is how we change your habits. So have we dealt with all 4 parts of the changes in the brain chemicals when people deal with change? And I don't think a lot of change management programs deal with that psychological side of it, which is where sometimes the change management programs fail, because they're like, well, we've done the training, we've done the processes, but then people are still not on that journey.
It's so interesting, right? Like, I feel like now with AI agents, really we're on this we've created a new category of software that are agents supplementing the workforce. There is an immediate resistance because people associate it with job loss. And of course, like, I wouldn't want to embrace AI if I know my colleagues are going to be losing jobs just blindly. But obviously, there's a lot of benefits to it that we're seeing, at least at Salesforce, right? We're seeing, like, there's not only efficiency gain, but also there's growth opportunities that agents are able to help us unlock from, like, a sales agent perspective, mining all the leads that come to our website that we didn't have people to focus on previously. But these are the stories that I think, like, you touched on something extremely important, is like, hey, in the large scale transformation, it's actually not just give people a module, hey, go study about this specific, like, area, finish all the training and tick the box. And then also, there's not just like, hey, here's the new process, go follow it. There's a component of, like, hey, how do we create a safe space to give people space to experiment, to learn from each other, and to also celebrate some of the wins, right? And that's entire system I think about is like, a change management system that you highlight. I think what you highlighted is, hey, the human component actually probably is the most important. And I actually think about, like, we right now talk a lot about the technology, AI agents, data, AI tech, right? But the reality is, like, I think 70% of the work is about human, because of the emotions. Like, it's easier to adopt an architecture because you can have super smart engineers build the thing, but for it to be adopted for me, you and me, and a lot of people, practitioners and line of business, to like actually want to use it and embrace using it, that's much harder.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about, like, speaking of the learning programs, right? Because it's such a big component, but what I think you embarked on is something really important. It's like, hey, the definition of learning program has to change.
Yeah. It's not like you mentioned before. It's like it can't be a tick box exercise. Tick box exercise is going to the gym, doing a half an hour session and thinking you can run a marathon the next day. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
and so with also the training programs, I think a lot of the approaches have been quite traditional, and it doesn't work with how our brains work. Like, we can't absorb information. I mean, I see like 6-hour e-learning courses.
Yep.
And how much of that actually people like absorb into the long-term memory,
Right.
let alone
Yeah.
then turn that into a habit over a 6-hour e-learning course.
Yeah.
And so like your brain, this thing where your brain works better with like micro learning bursts.
Yeah.
So whether it's like 15 minutes a day, but like saying, 15 minutes a day, you're actually strengthening the neuro pathways in your brain where you can store and retrieve information a lot quicker. So then you're building your brain muscles. And so instead of sitting in a 6-hour course where you're not going to understand it, so the forgetting curve means you'll forget 50% by the end of the day and 95% by the end of the week.
Wow.
But then you spend 6 hours trying to learn this thing, you're going to forget about it anyway. So it's because it hasn't been worked with how your brain works. But if you do like 15 minutes a day, you're strengthening your neural pathways. So it's actually stored better in your brain, and you can retrieve it in your brain. So then this is not new in terms of science. This is like research being proven on this. So we know how our brains work. How are we not incorporating these learning strategies with working how our brain works? So it's less cognitive load as well for us, because it works with how our brains work. So and then also it's like there's one thing about learning, but then it's like when there's a quote, it's like if you can't explain it to someone, you don't know it well enough. So then this is where the social communities work really well. The whole success stories is like when you're able to explain it to someone, you've had to absorb the information, and then convey it in a way that someone else understands it. But then how you understand it might not be the way I understand it. So having to adapt to your way of understanding helps me learn that 3 or 4 times stronger. And then you as a person also understands and feels the emotions when I'm sharing it. And then the emotion side of things means that more of your brain's lit up, and you absorb more of that information. So the whole social learning piece actually helps us learn more with less effort, because of the emotion side of things, and we explain it in a way that we actually cement that learning further in our brains.
I think you've just put a very scientific way of explaining how, our teams drove AI adoption, like within 3 weeks, 90% adoption, because we brought in that community piece of sharing best practices, use cases across engineers who are skeptical about, the application of AI in their day-to-day. Initially, right? But it's that reinforcement and also the reward system, not only through like, hey, there's a award or something like a swag. That's one piece, but really like the connection, and also at the end of the day, we're here to help each other, and there's a value created when you're recognized for bring something delightful to everyone in your community and people you work with. That kind of repeatable cycle reinforces the adoption, right? So say more about how you work with large enterprises. Like, we talk a lot about adoption. What kind of metrics do you think like a CDO or CEO should be looking at when it comes to data? What's the measure of success?
you've got the like your usage dashboard. So
Mhm.
whether it's Copilot, so it's like how many people are actually going into the tools, and are they staying in the tools? So you might have a Copilot. You might have a Copilot launch, and everyone goes in there because of the hype. But
Right.
actually, after a week, after 2 weeks, after the month, how's that adoption rate? How many people are using it? How many people are staying in the tool? So there's those metrics there. But then you've got like how many people are asking the right question? How many people are asking questions in these communities? That then shows whether you've got that safe space for people to ask the questions. Sometimes the signals of fear versus curiosity is like is in these like communities, like the questions being asked, is that a signal of curiosity, or is that a signal of fear of the safe space isn't there? So not only have you got the adoption utilization metrics, but it's like, how do you measure kind of more the softer unspoken kind of thing? So it's like the curiosity there, curiosity to drive innovation, the drive to learn, the drive to ask questions, and they're the things. Like, what about your community activities? Is that up and running? And then I would say also your like employee engagement. What the latest Gallup survey is saying, like 21% of the global workforce is engaged. That's 2 out of 10 people in each team that are engaged.
Right.
And we've got all these tools and data out there to make our lives better, help us make better decisions, help us to be faster and smarter. But then only 2 out of 10 are engaged. So are we missing a link there in terms of these are tools there that help us like have better lives, have more time to our hands, more creative, strategic work? That should really like focus on the stuff that really fires our belly. And what's the gap there? So I think the whole employee engagement metrics are really important there as well. It's like, are people overwhelmed? Do people feel connected? Do people feel like they're on board, or they've been left behind? So these are, you've got the metrics on whether people are using the tools, but then it's actually, what about all the softer side of things that build that kind of the culture and mindset around it?
That is so critical. It's interesting. So if you're a senior leader, don't just look at the AI adoption metrics alone. That in and of itself is just it could be a watermelon metric. When the outside it's green, 90% adoption, but inside, look at the employee engagement. And you also talked about, hey, there's the psychological safety component. How do you measure that? Maybe it's through conversations and qualitatively understanding how people are feeling, as well as there's quantitative data you can collect through those employee survey results. But like, have those conversations. It's really a system.
Exactly.
Right. Like, and I think a lot about, hey, if you want to become an agentic enterprise, adopting AI mindset, there's a lot of component on, hey, like, are my employees curious? Do they want to learn? Are we providing a safe environment, right, for people to like ask the tough questions? And there is no silly question, right? Like, there's only people who don't ask questions. That's when it's you're in big trouble, because people are not curious or don't feel the safety to ask. But that's actually one of the dangers, right? Because I feel like now, if you resist change, you risk irrelevance in the market.
Exactly.
Great. Wow. Hey, I know we're coming up to time. I have to ask this question, because since you're the first woman in data and AI leader on my podcast, what do you think is going on with the phenomenon, like the very fact that there's only so few of us? What do you think is going on? What do we need to do proactively to drive a movement amongst the women in this space?
It's a really good question. I think I mean, like, we do have a whole imposter syndrome thing.
Yes.
It's like, but I think being around other women as role models, I think that drives that. Okay, well, the success stories,
Right. Yep.
we can do this. She's done it. We can do this.
Yes.
But I think we also need to be really, like, we've got kids and we've got families and their lifestyle. I think we also be practical about, having it all, and actually that honest conversation of, okay, what does all mean, and what does that mean, and it's different for everyone.
Yes.
But then it's okay, because success is also different for everyone.
Right. Yep.
But then also and this is where I think I'm a big advocate for AI in helping bridge this gap. I have spoken to many women that gone, I have really good idea. Really good idea.
Yep.
But the way I convey this to a certain audience, they end up spending more time stressing about how they convey it than actually how great that idea is.
Right.
And then they sometimes talk themselves out of even presenting that idea.
Yes.
But like I find AI can really be such a bridge between like personality types, communication types, and really bring those ideas to the table. Bring women to have a seat at the table, because those ideas are still valid. Those ideas are still great. And actually, we've been able to use AI to articulate it in a way that gives us that seat at the table. And that's something I'm really quite passionate about. It's like, well, this tool's here.
Yes.
Like, how do we help it going? How do we use it to go, well, actually, I deserve a seat at the table, and this is how I'm going to help articulate these ideas to that audience that will give me that opportunity. So, so yeah, I say, like, I think we're just opening the doors here with that piece. I know there's a whole mentorship side of things, which is so important, with the whole emotional connection and network. But at the same time, how do we use these tools to really give us that seat at the table as well?
Yeah, I love that. It's very concrete, right? Like, hey, if you have an idea, put it into ChatGPT. Just ask some questions, refine the idea. You kind of have a thought partner that's available there 24/7 for your use, and it's of course like a safe space, right? Like, you have a great idea, run it by the ChatGPT. Maybe it'll refine your idea and make it even better, give you some new suggestions. But at the end of the day, you're the one with the idea in the first place. So use the tool, help augment you, right? Augment all of us, because that's really what AI is here to do. Augment all of us so that we can take that one first step, put out the thought, and see what people think, right? And then it's going to be a virtual cycle, like a flywheel. The first idea, then it takes the next. That's actually how I started with posting on LinkedIn, because I was always afraid of, what if people didn't think this works or that works? But after a talk, I was like, I learned a few things I think I should really share. And in the meantime, because of what Salesforce has been doing on the Agentic AI, a lot of my friends have been asking, hey, what are you doing that's working? And so that one post, of course, I used ChatGPT to help me refine the idea before I put it on LinkedIn. That one post got, like, I don't know, 8,000 views.
Wow.
And lots of engagement. And so then I was like, there's something really going on here, and I should continue to do this. And the more I did it, the better I got. And I like built a custom GPT. And then it's
got your voice.
Now here we are. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation in London, Big Data London conference.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Thank you.